The wedding gift no one wanted. Everyone said it was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The hall was decorated with white flowers, soft lights, and smiling faces everywhere. I stood there in my wedding dress, shaking slightly, pretending to smile while my heart felt strangely heavy. Something inside me felt incomplete, like someone important was missing. That someone was my grandfather, Mr. Harold. He was old, fragile, and walked slowly with a wooden cane, but his eyes still held warmth and wisdom. While everyone else brought shiny envelopes and expensive boxes, Grandpa came toward me holding a small, worn-out passbook wrapped carefully in brown paper. He smiled and said softly, "Emily, this isn't much, but it's everything I saved for you." Before I could even open my mouth, my father Richard noticed the gift. His face tightened with irritation. He grabbed the passbook, flipped it once, and laughed bitterly. "What is this junk?" he said loudly. "An old passbook? On my daughter's wedding day?" People nearby turned to look. My cheeks burned with embarrassment. Then my father did something that froze my heart. He walked to the ice bucket beside the drinks and threw the passbook inside, saying coldly, "Trash belongs with trash." The room went silent. My grandfather's hands trembled. His eyes filled with pain, but he didn't say a word. He just stood there, humiliated, invisible, like he didn't matter. Something inside me snapped. I looked at my father, then at the crowd, and finally at my grandfather. I realized at that moment that money had blinded my family, but love had not blinded me. Without saying a word, I took off my heels, turned around, and walked out of my own wedding. People whispered. Someone called my name. But I didn't stop. I had only one thought in my mind. Backhand index pointing right, I need to find out what Grandpa really gave me. And that decision was about to change everything. The bank that changed everything. I didn't know where I was going when I walked out of the wedding hall. My dress brushed the pavement, my hands were shaking, and my heart was pounding louder than the city traffic around me. People thought I had gone crazy. Leaving my own wedding, over an old passbook? But deep inside, I trusted my grandfather more than anyone else in that room. I stopped a taxi and said only one thing. "Please take me to the nearest bank." The driver looked at me through the mirror, surprised to see a bride sitting in his back seat, eyes red, voice firm. He nodded and drove without asking questions. When I reached the bank, I walked inside still wearing my wedding dress. The place was quiet, clean, and calm, the complete opposite of the chaos I had just left behind. People stared. Some whispered. But I walked straight to the counter. The bank teller, a middle-aged woman named Ms. Carter, looked up and froze. "Ma'am, are you okay?" she asked carefully. I placed the old, wet passbook on the counter. "My grandfather gave this to me today," I said. "I just want to know what's inside." She opened the passbook slowly. At first, her expression was neutral. Then confused. Then pale. Her fingers stopped moving. She looked at the numbers again, and again. Then she looked up at me, eyes wide. "Ma'am," she said in a trembling voice. "Please, do not leave." That sentence sent a chill through my body. "What do you mean?" I asked. She quickly typed something into her computer, her hands shaking. Other employees started to look over. One of them stood up and whispered something to the manager. Within seconds, a man in a dark suit rushed over. "Is this the account holder's granddaughter?" he asked. I nodded, my heart racing. The manager swallowed hard. "Ma'am, this account has been active for over 40 years. I felt my breath catch. "Your grandfather deposited small amounts every single month," he continued. "Sometimes just a few dollars. Sometimes more. He never me." The hidden treasure. I couldn't believe my eyes. The number on the screen was enough to change my entire life. My grandfather, quiet and humble, had silently built a fortune over decades. And everyone at the wedding had laughed, thinking it was worthless. I sat down in the bank chair, holding the passbook tightly. Tears blurred my vision, but this time they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of truth, love, and respect. Ms. Carter leaned closer. "Ma'am, your grandfather is one of the most disciplined people I've ever seen," she whispered. "He never boasted. He never showed off. He just kept giving, saving, and waiting." I looked around the bank. The other employees were staring at me, a mix of shock and admiration on their faces. I realized something: the world rarely notices quiet goodness until it's too late. I picked up my phone and called my grandfather. He answered on the first ring, as if he had been waiting for my call. "Emily," he said softly. "I saw what happened. I am so sorry your father didn't understand." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Grandpa, I couldn't finish." My voice trembled. He chuckled lightly. "I told you, my dear. Money is just paper. It's not love. But I wanted you to have the freedom to live without worry." I looked down at the passbook again. All the months, all the years, every tiny deposit he made, it wasn't just money. It was his love, patience, and trust in me. And in that instant, I realized a truth that my father could never understand. The richest gifts are not the loudest. The most valuable gifts are those hidden in plain sight, meant for someone who truly sees them. I stood up, feeling strength rush through me. I would never let anyone belittle him again. I would honor him. And I would make sure the world knew what real love and sacrifice look like. The revelation at home. When I returned home from the bank, my mind was spinning. The passbook in my hands felt heavier than any gift I had ever received, yet it carried something far more precious: the love and sacrifices of my grandfather, Mr. Harold. I walked into the living room cautiously. My father, Richard, was sitting in his armchair, sipping coffee, pretending nothing had happened. My mother, Linda, glanced at me nervously, sensing that I had discovered something important. I placed the passbook on the table in front of them. "Dad. Mom, do you know what this is?" I asked, keeping my voice calm but firm. Richard looked at it dismissively. "That old passbook? Why are you making a fuss over it?" he scoffed. I took a deep breath, and opened it slowly. "Look at the deposits, every single month for decades. Grandpa never missed a single one. And the total balance, it's enough to change my life completely." My mother's eyes widened, and even my father's smug expression faltered for a moment. I don't understand," he stammered. I continued, my voice steadier now. "This isn't just money. This is a lifetime of love and sacrifice. A silent gift from Grandpa, who thought of me more than anyone else in this house." My father's face went pale. He opened his mouth but could not find the right words. I felt a rush of clarity. For the first time I understood something crucial. Respect and love can never be measured by wealth or arrogance. I looked at them both and said softly but firmly, "Grandpa's gift may have seemed small to some, but it's priceless. And I will honor it, no matter what anyone thinks." And in that moment, I made a silent promise to myself. I would never let anyone belittle my grandfather again. I would carry his love forward, and no one could take that from me. The confrontation. The next day, I returned home, passbook in hand, my mind racing. I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. My father had humiliated my grandfather in front of everyone, and the truth now had to come out. I walked into the living room. My father, Richard, was sitting with his morning coffee, pretending nothing had happened. My mother, Linda, glanced at me nervously. I placed the passbook on the table. "Dad, Do you recognize this? I asked, keeping my voice steady. He frowned. That old thing? Why do you care? He said, trying to sound casual. I took a deep breath. This passbook is worth more than all the gifts anyone brought yesterday. Every single deposit was made by Grandpa. Every month, without fail. His eyes widened, but he quickly tried to mask it. Well, that doesn't mean. I interrupted him, pointing to the screen on my phone where the bank had sent a statement. Look at this balance, Dad. This is what he gave me. And do you know what's the most important part? He looked hesitant, but I continued. Grandpa never flaunted it. He never begged for attention. He just quietly did what was right. Unlike you, who threw it in the ice thinking it was trash. My mother gasped. Richard's face turned pale. For the first time, I saw doubt and shame flicker in his eyes. I felt a surge of strength. Dad, respect is earned, not assumed. And you just learned a very hard lesson. He opened his mouth, but I ignored him and walked out of the room. I wasn't angry anymore. I was determined. Determined to honor Grandpa's sacrifice. Determined to live my life on my terms, without letting anyone's greed dictate it. Facing my parents. I walked back home, passbook in my hands, my heart still racing. This old passbook from my grandfather, Mr. Harold, wasn't just money, it was decades of love, care, and sacrifice. I placed it on the dining table and looked at my parents. My father, Richard, was sitting in his chair, sipping coffee, pretending nothing had happened. My mother, Linda, glanced at me nervously, clearly aware that I had discovered something important. I spoke calmly but firmly. Dad. Mom, do you know what this is? Richard glanced at it dismissively. That old thing? Why are you making such a fuss? He said, trying to sound casual. I took a deep breath and opened the passbook slowly. Look at the deposits, every single month for decades. Grandpa never missed a single one. And the total balance, it's more than anyone at my wedding could ever imagine. My mother's eyes widened, and even my father's confident expression faltered for a moment. I don't understand, he stammered. I continued, my voice stronger now. This isn't just money. This is a lifetime of love and sacrifice. A silent gift from Grandpa, who always thought of me before anyone else in this family. My father's face turned pale. He opened his mouth but couldn't find words. In that moment, I realized a truth. Respect and love can never be measured by wealth or arrogance. I looked at both of them and said firmly. Grandpa's gift may have seemed small to some, but to me, it is priceless. And I will honor it, no matter what anyone says. And at that moment, I made a silent promise to myself. I would never let anyone belittle my grandfather again. I would carry his love forward, and no one could take that away from me. The apology no one expected. That evening, the house felt unusually quiet. My father, Richard, sat alone in the living room, staring at the floor. The confidence he always carried was gone. In its place was something I had never seen before, regret. I was about to walk past him when he finally spoke. Emily, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. He cleared his throat. I was wrong, he said quietly. I judged your grandfather without knowing the truth. I humiliated him, and you. I turned to face him. His eyes were lowered. I thought money defined respect, he continued. I thought if something didn't look valuable, it wasn't worth anything. My chest tightened. But your grandfather, he said, his voice breaking slightly, proved me wrong. He saved for you his entire life, and I treated his gift like trash. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said softly, Dad, he didn't save that money to impress anyone. He did it because he loved me. Tears welled in his eyes. I know, he whispered. And I want to apologize, not just to you, but to him. I nodded slowly. If you really mean that, I said, then you'll say it to him yourself. Later that night, we drove together to my grandfather's small house. When Grandpa Harold opened the door, leaning on his cane, he looked surprised to see us standing there. Richard stepped forward, his voice trembling. I'm sorry, he said. I was blinded by pride. I disrespected you in front of everyone, and I regret it deeply. My grandfather smiled gently. I never held anger in my heart, he said. All I wanted was for my granddaughter to be happy. In that moment, I realized something powerful. Backhand index pointing right, true wealth isn't money. Backhand index pointing right, it's humility, love, and the courage to admit when you're wrong. And finally, our family began to. The greatest gift of all. Weeks passed after that night, but nothing in our family was the same anymore, in the best way possible. My grandfather, Harold, was no longer treated as an invisible man. My parents visited him often, listened to his stories, and respected his words. And my father, he had changed. One evening, as we sat together in Grandpa's small living room, he held my hand and smiled. Emily, he said softly, promise me one thing. I nodded. Promise me you'll never let money change your heart. Let it help you, but never control you. Tears filled my eyes. I promise, Grandpa. I later used part of the savings to rebuild Grandpa's old house, not into something fancy, but into something warm and comfortable, just like him. The rest, I invested carefully, just as he had taught me. As for the wedding I walked away from, I didn't regret it. I realized that day wasn't about losing a marriage. It was about finding my values. Months later, when I finally married, the ceremony was simple. No luxury. No show. Just family, honesty, and love. My grandfather stood beside me, smiling proudly. And as I looked around, I understood the truth that changed my life forever. Backhand index pointing right, the greatest gift isn't money. Backhand index pointing right, it's love, respect, and the courage to stand up for what truly matters. This story didn't end with revenge. It ended with wisdom. And that was my grandfather's final gift to me.